Today we're headed to the Black Elk Peak, formerly called Harney Peak, in the Black Hills of South Dakota. The peak is over 7,200 feet above sea level, making it the highest point in South Dakota, and in fact, the second highest elevation east of the Bighorn Mountains, so pretty much the highest point between Wyoming and the Pyrenees in Spain. The peak is in the Black Elk Wilderness, a designated wilderness area of almost 13,500 acres in the Black Hills National Forest between Mount Rushmore and Custer State Park. We're going to be starting at the south trailhead of Trail 9 in Custer State Park next to Sylvan Lake. Once you're at Sylvan Lake, the trailhead is across the lake from the general store in the day use area. If you park in any of the parking areas here, there's a little picnic ground and there's a bathroom with a couple of vending machines. The trailhead is just over there, right where you see those orange cones. So what we are going to do is walk up Trail 9, shown in white here on this map that's at a little kiosk right in front of the bathroom. We're going to walk up to Black Elk Peak along Trail 9 and then walk back along Trail 4, shown in red. The section of Trail 9 that we're taking is a little over 3 miles long, and you gain about 1,500 feet in elevation from Sylvan Lake. There is another end to Trail 9, a northern route. It's about 5 miles long and gains 2,500 feet. The Trail 9 south end is probably the most traveled trail in the Black Elk Wilderness, so you'll meet a lot of people. If you're in good shape and you don't want to see a lot of people, maybe you should take the north end of Trail 9. You can access that end of the trail from Highway 244 just west of Mount Rushmore. What we like to do in our videos is not just present a travelogue of our trip, but also to inform and educate. So we're going to show you some pictures and talk about the natural history of the area, as well as give you some tips on how to make your trip even better. So let's get started on the way to Black Elk Peak. Walking along the glittering paths which sparkle from the weathering of the surrounding mica schists. The geology of the Black Hills is very complex. Unlike many mountain hikes that you might take, as you go up in elevation here, you're actually going backwards in time, geologically speaking. The granite rocks of the Black Hill Peak and surrounding area are part of the Precambrian Shield. The basement of our continent formed sometime around 2 billion years ago. In most areas of the U.S., this old basement rock is overlain by younger rock, especially sedimentary rock to the east of the Rockies. But sometime around 65 to 70 million years ago, the granite rock, which was thousands of feet below sedimentary rock, was pushed up in a dome-like fashion here. Sometimes people refer to the Black Hills area as an island in a sea of the grass plains, and you can see why when you look at renderings like the one in this map. The Laramie Mountains and the Bighorn Mountains of Wyoming were being formed around the same time, so geologists believe the two events are connected to a collision of the North American continental plate with one of the Pacific plates. Anyway, over time, not only was some of the old Precambrian granite exposed to the surface, but much of the overlying sedimentary rock was metamorphosized and then eroded. The result is a target-like pattern of geologic time, with the oldest rock being in the center and progressively younger rock encircling the peaks as you move outwards toward the plains. here the first week of July, and as you can see, the wildflowers were very abundant and just beautiful, and the views were just breathtaking. This is a wonderful, wonderful hike. However, I'm going to have to admit here that we were really not prepared. Where we live, it's only about 700 feet above sea level, and the altitude here is a mile higher. The air is thinner, and our blood just really wasn't ready for that altitude since we had just arrived in South Dakota. So you may consider, if you're from a lowland area like us, spending a day or two in the Black Hills area before attempting to take this moderate to strenuous hike. Here's a fun fact about this plant. The twin flower was the favorite of Carolus Linnaeus, the inventor of binomial nomenclature, the taxonomic system that uses genus and species that we're showing here. By the way, many of my plant identifications are based on this book, Plants of the Black Hills and Bear Lodge Mountains by Gary E. Larson and James R. Johnson. I may have made a few mistakes in identification because I did not have time to stop and actually examine the plants in detail or collect specimens, but I did the best that I could. You've no doubt noticed that we took a lot of pictures of downed trees. A lot of these trees have been killed by the mountain pine beetle. It's a native insect that's killed millions of ponderosa pine in the Black Hills in the last few years. The beetles are really, really small. They're about the size maybe of a grain of rice. They burrow into living trees mid-July through August and construct tunnels just beneath the bark in which to lay their eggs. The eggs begin to hatch in late summer, and the larvae feed within the inner bark of the tree until the following spring. In late spring, they pupate for several weeks before becoming adults and starting the host cycle over again when they emerge and fly off to a new tree. Now, the adult beetles actually host several fungi species that they carry to these newly infested trees. The fungi colonize the phloem and sapwood, eventually blocking the water-conducting columns of the tree. So the combined efforts of these two organisms, the beetle and the fungi, are why a tree dies within a year of the attack. The beetle attacks seem to come in waves and reach epidemic levels every 10 to 20 years, resulting in mass die-offs of trees. The current epidemic began in 2016. In other parts of the Black Hills, you may see large piles of logs where they're trying to control the pine beetle by taking out any infested trees as quickly as possible. If you go in the summer like we did, you want to take plenty of water. I took about 3 liters, and by the time I got back, I was completely out. Now, we did cross a stream here, and so for you wilderness types, there is a source of water if you have some sort of water purification system. What I really liked about this hike was every time you turned a corner, you were in a different microenvironment. So here we entered into this little stream valley, and look at all the wonderful aquatic loving plants, all these ferns. Now, I'm not a fern expert, so I can't identify all the ones that we saw, but there was just a mass of ferns and other types of plants that you find in a wetland area right here. And just a few feet away, you're in a dry, almost desert-like setting. So every little spot along the trail was just fascinating in terms of the plants and the wildlife that you might see. see this sign, you know you're getting close. Now you're actually getting off of Trail 9, which, by the way, is very well marked with blue markers, either pieces of plastic or sometimes just pieces of cloth. But you get off the little spur here, you're headed up toward the peak. Do be aware that you have to share the trail, not only with other hikers, but sometimes with horses.
Hi, guys. Thanks for sharing the trail.
Oh, thank you.
When you see this little triangular tunnel, now you're on your last leg. This is the climb up. There's a series of stairs. Take your time. You're there, so there's no need to rush. The Harney Lookout Tower was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps back in the 1930s. And for about 30 years, it was manned as a fire lookout station, but it's been abandoned since 1967. But this stone structure is really well put together, and you can go right up on it and go to a platform for panoramic views of the surrounding areas. As you can see, we were there on a very beautiful day, and so the views outside were breathtaking. But if you want to, and if you're brave enough, you can actually climb up into the Fire Lookout Tower and look out the windows. The windows are a little bit dirty, views are not quite as good, but you can do that, especially if the weather outside is threatening. Now, it was a bit cooler than when we left Sylvan Lake, and so make sure you take maybe a little jacket or a sweatshirt, and hold on to your hat because the wind was fierce. After a bit of rest, some water, and maybe some snacks, all too soon it's time to head down the mountain. Now at this point, you especially notice it's a good thing if your knees and your ankles and your hips are in good shape, because there are a lot of steps down. I took a walking stick with me, and I found that to be particularly helpful. So we are going to rejoin Trail 9 for a short way, but all too soon, we're going to get to this juncture for Trail 7 and Trail 4, and we're going to take Trail 4 back. Now, I have to tell you that Trail 4 is longer, it's more rugged, and it has less overstory, so you're more exposed to the elements. It's worth trying if you're in very good shape, but if I had to do it over again, I think I might just turn around and walk right back down Trail 9, to be honest. time, you see evidence of past fires. As you might imagine, all those downed ponderosa pine trees create a lot of potential fuel for forest fires. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Fire is a natural part of this ecosystem. Currently, the Black Hills National Forest averages around 100 wildfires per year. According to the Forest Service, about 75% of those fires are caused by lightning. So prior to settlement by Europeans in the 1800s, natural wildfires would have kept the canopy more open with a lot of biodiversity in the understory. Fire suppression, as well as intensive grazing and harvesting of the largest trees, have really led to a lot of major changes in forest structure and composition in the Black Hills area compared to what it would have been like, say, 200 years ago. If you go down the mountain by way of Trail 4, eventually you're going to find yourself at this little parking lot. Now, don't get too excited. This is actually the trailhead to Little Devil's Tower. Trail 4 goes behind the bathrooms there, and you still got a little ways to go, maybe a third of a mile or even a half of a mile, out in some pretty open ground. But just keep on trekking. Eventually, you will find yourself back at the little picnic area at Sylvan Lake. Now, Trail 9, remember, started over there. If you turn around 180 degrees, you'll see where we came out of Trail 4. So if you wanted to go up by way of Trail 4, it's just up on the other side of the picnic ground. The lake looks really inviting, so please take your swimsuit. And that'd be a great way to end a great day of hiking. A lot of people say it takes 3 to 4 hours to make this round trip loop. I got to tell you, it took us a lot longer since we weren't used to the altitude. We had to stop and rest a lot. It took us nearly 7 hours, so take lots of food and water with you. Thanks for watching Out and About with Andy and Heather and Kyle. And please subscribe.